periodization within the out season? Obviously there's structure, but is there any sort of periodization within the out season training?
That's a great question. So looking at it a couple of ways. A lot of people don't understand one, periodization, or how impactful a good periodized program can make a difference in when the regular season comes along, not let alone the out season. One of the things to look at is having the periodization be discipline independent. So I know a lot of times if you go get a free plan, you're going to have out season, intermediate, Ironman, or a race distance, a performance level, and then in season, out season, whatever, 12-week, 8-week, something. But to treat all the disciplines different is what you have to do to get the most out of each one. So you're not spending excessive time where there's diminished return on you can't make very much gains if you're already a great swimmer, whereas you may make substantial gains in the bike or the run. And so being able to periodize them independently by discipline and proportionally. It's not an all or nothing switch. It's not this focus, that focus. It's how much of each focus precisely. And then we use a reverse periodization or a staggered periodization, where instead of building this high volume, which is the very traditional 30-year-old thinking, and then increasing speed later, is think of it like strong before long or fast before far. So teaching yourself to get fast and building that capability for speed, and that's something that you can't do during the in-season. During the in-season, when you're racing these long races, you don't have the capacity. Your body doesn't have the capacity to absorb the type of training that you can in the out-season when you don't have to do those super long rides or runs. Your body can absorb a lot more things, and that's the time to squeeze the fast in and the strong in. And then later, when next season comes, you're going to be able to go far and long building that stamina, but you're going to be able to do those race prep phases on much fewer hours because you just prepared yourself to race a shorter race. So rather than thinking, I have to go to a 16-hour Ironman, I need to prepare for a 16-hour event, develop the capacity, the efficiency, the mechanics, and the threshold and strength to go do a 13-hour race. Then as that race gets closer, you're training for a shorter race, which reduces all your long sessions, your combo sessions, break workouts. Everything is smaller, shorter, and you're able to race faster.
Okay, so I got a couple questions based off what you just said. One, actually answer them if you can remember, because I'll forget my second question by the time I'm finished answering asking my first. The first one is this. It seems daunting to try to figure out how to do what you're telling us to do. So I assume, and tell us how, the TriDot system helps you manage this time most efficiently. Also, of the training itself, does the software or does the coaching take into account, a lot of people are probably trying to build up strength and doing a lot of lifting at this time, or just functional strength training. Do the workout goals, or do those sort of reflect the fact that you might be more fatigued having done stuff like that?
They do. That's a kind of a complex question because it's one of those it depends questions. So first of all, how we manage the training. So it does sound daunting, and you mentioned earlier that we are patents pending on our technology and how we do what we do, how we deliver this training. And we're the only ones in the world that do any of the things that I mentioned earlier, as far as the standardized assessments up front, taking all that into account, how we manage workload training, workload capacity, and that all the different metrics where we determine how much, intensity, how long, how frequently, what type of workouts you're doing, and then translate that into race protocols and measure that, athletes before, during, and after, taking into account their height, weight, age, gender, body composition, all of those things. So what it looked like originally, so in the absence of that, what most or all coaches that don't have something like that, what you're left with is using training principle and theory and what other people do. So if there's a world champion so-and-so, you look at their workouts and want to do what their workouts are, or you listen to a coach who's had good success with one athlete, and so you do what he does for all his athletes or her athletes. And so you're pretty much following tradition or sort of vague principles. And when you try to broadly apply principles like that, they're all truthful in certain circumstances, but they can't be universally applied. And the trouble is that you don't know which ones are true. I know there's that Mark Twain quote, the trouble isn't what you know, it's what you think you know that you don't know. Hey, Sean?
Yep.
We can hear some feedback on there. We heard you. Your audio is working now. That's cool.
Okay, good. I'll mute then. Thank you.
All right, man. Thanks. So, gosh, I forgot your second question, but so the first one so in absence of having the ability to measure all those things, when you got athletes or coaches that are prescribing training that's based on theory and principle and guidelines of what they've done before, instead of doing that, we've developed a methodology to actually be kind of agnostic on what principles or anything and just take the data in. And in order to do that, we needed the methodology of how you manage the training, how you quantify the workloads, and how you account for the composition of the different sets and the intervals, how much fatigue does that create, and just being able to track it over time. And that just requires hundreds and hundreds of athletes and doing it the same way every time. And every time we see a deviation or a split or a pattern forming with an age, or there's a threshold for weight, how far can you run, or how heavy can you be of an athlete before training is very excessively traumatic, the longer runs on your body. So where's that point of diminishing returns for a heavy athlete or an older athlete versus a different athlete, and how much ROI can they expect on race day if they race at this watts versus that watts. And the only way to get to that is creating a system and a methodical process for building and designing both training plans and racing methodologies, and having just a high volumes of athletes to do that. And so,
well, it sounds like to me that the system